All right, welcome back to the Planet Paintball Podcast, brought to you by 1023 Sportswear, Southwest Paintball in Bayfield, Colorado, local nobody, and Shocker Paintball. Woo, it's getting long. Anyways, I got an old school guy with me, Michael, but some of you nationwide might know him better as EvilPopTart. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, Hunter? It's nice to see you.
It's good to be seen, man.
It's always jarring when I'm out in public and I run into one of the paintball guys, and I'm there with like my family and stuff, and I hear, "Hey, Evil Pop Tart!" I'm like, "Oh God, here we go."
So when you made the username, was there any forethought into that? Where did that come from?
So the username came from Counter-Strike, which was an FPS online game that was based on the Half-Life brand of games from Valve, and those were really popular in like the late '90s. So let's see, I would have been about 12 or 13 at that time. So if you imagine a 12 or 13-year-old boy trying to come up with something he thought was funny, that's kind of how we arrived at that. And then it was easy to remember, so it just became my username across all platforms, video games and later on like paintball forums and what have you. I even have evilpoptart@gmail.com. That's my
Nice.
old email that I don't use anymore.
So don't be sending him stuff thinking he's getting
Yeah,
it.
no. I don't think I even have it on my phone anymore. So you can send whatever you want to it. Just don't expect an answer anytime soon.
Fair enough. So Counter-Strike, I mean, was and that was like a real cultural thing even inside the paintball community. So what came first, paintball or Counter-Strike?
So Counter-Strike came first for me. I think it came out in like 1997 or 98, and I started paintballing shortly after. My mom bought me a couple of brass Eagle Talons, which were these like plastic pump guns from Walmart for my birthday. I think I turned 12, and that's what she got me for my birthday. So I started out, shooting trees in the woods, and eventually some buddies of mine got paintball guns. We started shooting each other like at our family farm, and that's kind of how I got my start from paintball. And very quickly, my buddies got like better paintball markers. I'm like, ah, man, I got to keep up. So I got a Piranha. I don't remember the exact model, but like a spider clone Piranha from like Dick's Sports.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been in 2002 timeframe, maybe 2001. And around the same time, I found the paintball fields here. So I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. And back then, the field to be at was called Trigger Time Paintball. And I think you've actually had one of the guys that runs the current former, or was running. I don't know if he's still there or not. Chavez.
Yeah.
But
Chavez.
That was the big paintball field here in Columbia. It was it's like 60 or 70 acres of woods. It had a really. Have you ever been there? Like, were you around back then?
I never went to Columbia to play, so I'm up in Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
So I've never been there. Chavez has been on, and since you brought him up, congratulations to Chavez. His is the first interview to hit 1,000 views on YouTube. So there we go, buddy.
Way to be, dude. But yeah, so it gave me an introduction to kind of getting out of the woods into a more structured level of play, and it was so addictive. Like, I latched onto it right away, and I couldn't get enough, and I was trying to consume as much paintball as possible. And so that's how I got into like the paintball forum. So back in the early 2000s, Facebook didn't exist, YouTube didn't exist. A lot of things that we consume paintball media from now weren't around. So back then you had V Bulletin forums. So the first one I joined was called Paintball City. And then there was another one called Paintball Review or PB Review. Both of those are long gone. And then they were talking shit about another paintball forum called PB Nation. So I jumped on that one, and I actually had to go look it up tonight. I couldn't remember when I actually joined, but it was March of 2002, which is well over 20 years ago, which is really a bummer to think about. So yeah, it was just, my whole world was opening up, seeing all the different styles of play. Because when I started going to the fields, it was just, shooting Titmans and Autocockers in the woods. And I wasn't aware of like, tournament paintball or, hyperball or sup air or any of that stuff. So really my world opened up to all these different styles of play. And it was just so fascinating, all these different types of guns. And it's just a really great way to kind of learn a lot of different things and see that paintball is this huge big thing that's, nationwide. It wasn't just, local to where I was.
Yeah. What I think is cool about like that late 90s, early 2000, really like to like 2002-ish, like the Spider could kind of compete with the Autococker. Like the Autococker was way better, but you didn't feel totally outgunned if you were on a rec field with an Autococker at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was a pro team called Bad Company that shot spiders, and they had
Hmm.
some success. And there was a couple guys that ended up being pretty big stars. J.C. Whittington, I think, was probably the most popular guy, and I think Tom Cole is now running the NXL if I'm not mistaken, or was involved with something like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. Tom is running the NXL now, and he was like the founder of Bad Company.
yeah, I actually went
And
to.
then,
Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
no, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say there was a paintball field in Myrtle Beach called PBUSA, which is long gone now. But I remember being down there, and I was buddies with a couple of guys that played out of there, and they said, "Hey, you need to come down. There's this cool event coming on." And so I went down one weekend, and Bad Company came down and hosted a clinic, and they played with a lot of local guys, and they just absolutely stomped the shit out of us, and it was pretty amazing. That would have been like back in like 2003 or 2004 timeframe.
Hmm.
And they were still shooting. They weren't even shooting like the spimmies. They were shooting like the legit, sear tripping spiders, and they just were dunking on
Nice.
everybody.
Yeah, the skill level of those guys that played with the legitimate spiders had to be something else because they were a competitive team.
Yeah, well, I mean that was really before like ramping and the balls per second wars took off. So I mean everyone was shooting
Hmm.
about 10 balls a second, so it was a little more of a level playing field. I think like the next year was when halos and ramping boards and stuff started coming on the scene. Everyone's shooting 25 balls a second and shooting frozen ropes. So
Yeah, you can kind of get through 10 balls a second, like if you get lucky, right?
yeah.
It's hard to get through 20.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a different time back then. You would shoot the living shit out of somebody, and it wasn't a big deal as long as it wasn't like malicious or anything. But now it seems like when you go and you play an event and someone gets shot by more than a couple balls, they get really upset about it. So it's a different game back then than from what I can
Yeah.
see today. But yeah, so kind of continuing where we were, I think my first tournament would have been in 2003. So here in South Carolina, we had a state only tournament series called the SCPFOA, and that
Hmm.
was run by Jimmy Burke out of Ballbusters. And he I think they had like 5 or 6 events a year. It was 5-man. There was 2 divisions. There was like a rookie and an AM or an open or something.
Hmm.
Um, and my first tournament was at Sugar Time in Columbia. We didn't win a single game. I don't think we even shot a single player. We just got, absolutely wrecked. But despite that, it was so much fun. And it kind of drove me to try to play more and more and more and go and take my lumps. And that turned into playing a little more regularly with like the competitive guys, throughout 2004, playing a couple more
Hmm.
SDFOAs. And then finally in 2005, hooked up with Cecil Rogers out of Ground Zero Paintball in Lakeview, South Carolina, and played with their
Hmm.
team, the FU Fighters, which again maybe was a little aggressive. They were all hyped up. I think they had played the year before as some other team, and I went and tried out with them, and we were going to play novice CFOA. And I think the first team I played, because we had like 8 or 9 dudes there playing 5 man, so I finally got in a game. First match we played was the XSF. So like the real deal XSF. So
Well, welcome to competitive paintball, huh?
yeah, I think I still have welts from that. Those guys, they fucked us up. But it was still a pretty good experience. Got to see what the CFOA was about, which going from like a small state level tournament where there was like maybe 20 teams to the CFOA, which in its heyday, I mean, they had over 100 teams there. I mean, it was rivaling like the PSP. For those who don't know, that's what the NXL was a long time ago.
Hmm.
As far as like the number of teams, like the size of the event, like it was crazy. It had, even though it was a regional tournament, it had vendors and 1,000 people were there. It was nuts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you got the real experience back in the day at those things.
Yeah, which was really cool to say because I mean I'm not sure there was a lot of other events at that time at that level that were not national events. I mean, maybe like I think the XPSL out on the West Coast may have been similar size, but like it was kind of like getting a dose of going to a national event, only a couple hours away from home. So it was really
Yeah.
neat. So anyway, 2005, I hooked up with some buddies of mine here locally, and we started playing all of the SCFOA events under a team called Mowers Inc. And we ended up winning the series, the SCFOA series, and the year-end prize was going to World Cup, the PSP World Cup down at Disney.
Okay, nice.
And we actually did pretty decent. I think we ended up like 6th or 7th, which not bad for what started that year is kind of a throw together of a bunch of idiots who hadn't really played much tournament paintball.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty neat. Throughout 2005, as we were winning some tournaments and meeting lots of new people, made some friends. Ended up meeting a guy named Daniel Hamby up in Greenville. I forget the team that he played on, but it was they played with these like really weird looking guns called war machines. They look like giant hair dryers. Turns out that was what is modern day Nova paintball. That was the semi-automatic gun they made back then. Anyway, Daniel was really tight.
With the moving barrel?
Yeah, the barrel that kind of comes in now. Respect for him for going out with those things. But anyway, Daniel was really good buddies with some of the Dark Carnival guys. So he invited me up for a tryout at the beginning of 2006. So that's how I ended up hooking up with those guys and started playing CFOA X-Ball and had a lot of success, won some tournaments, did that from the 06, 07, and 08 seasons, and had a pretty good run.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was that first team's name called? The very first, if you can remember it.
I think we were, so the big team at Sugar Time was called Silent Thunder. So we were probably like the 4th or 5th string players for Silent Thunder. So we were like, I don't know, Silent Thunder Black or Silent Thunder Gold or something.
Nice.
Yeah, we were just there to kind of fill out the rest of the prize package for all the other teams that are actually good at paintball. Which, again, I don't think we shot anybody that day. We just got smoked.
That's how I feel like my first event went. Like it went pretty bad, pretty quick. You didn't have coaches back in the day, right? Like if you were lucky, the field owner kind of gave you some like little hints.
Yeah, I from what little I remember that tournament, we played mostly on like the field they put out in the parking lot, and the field was like at like a 5 or 6 degree slope. I mean, there was a definite advantage to being to the high side versus the low side. But I mean, I had a blast, and again, it ignited a passion for paintball that I didn't have before. So I look back on that time with a smile instead of being upset about being thrown to the wolves, which we 100% were. We really weren't. I don't think we even practiced. It's just like, hey, you want to play? And like, yep, okay. We got these other 4 dudes, or they want to do it too. So we were all, I guess, willing victims.
Oh, there you go. Oh, so what up? Like, I feel like most players have a team at the end of the day. So what do you feel like was your team at the end there?
Well, I would say the team I most remember spending most time with would have been the Dark Carnival guys. So on that team, there was like Eduardo Torres and Daryl Taco in later years, Austin Hood. I mean, so many really good players. I was really lucky to get on with them. I felt like I got along with everyone super duper well, and they were amazingly patient for having kind of a younger guy going there and being a silly young kid and not getting too impatient with me or anything. But I really look back on those times very fondly, and getting to play with Ken a lot was really, really cool, and learning some life lessons from him. Like having ownership for situations, not letting other people dictate outcomes for you. I think he put it a much different way, but that was the lesson I took away from it. He was a tremendous coach and a real wealth of talent, and I was really lucky to get to learn from him a little bit. Some of those tournaments were the most fun times I ever had playing paintball, just hanging out with everybody at the field and watching paintball and just shooting the breeze. It's as an adult, I kind of think about that time. It's like, man, it sucks because I never had money to go play, but I had all the time in the world. And now as an adult, I have a job that lets me go do that kind of stuff, but I don't have time to do it anymore. So it's kind of one life's cruel turns is that. But I unfortunately don't talk to a lot of those guys anymore, just because they're all in Greenville. I'm down here in Columbia, and I don't think hardly any of us play anymore. But that team that I played the SCFOA with, the Mowers Inc. guys, I still hang out with them occasionally, and we go to scenario games, which is so much fun.
Nice.
We go up to Command Decisions for Fulda Gap in the fall. We've played Black Ops in North Carolina. And then the other PB Nation guys that help run the site, they would go do Living Legends up in Chicago, which was a lot of fun. That was a cool field, CPX, which is unfortunately not there anymore. But that had the city field that was just, I mean, timeless and classic. I was so lucky to be able to do that stuff.
So how did you play college too?
No, we didn't have a team.
Okay.
I wish that had been a thing when I was there, but I played through college. In fact, when I got to be a freshman in school, I went to the University of South Carolina, go Cox, and so that was that first year that I played SCFOA, and then my sophomore year, that's when I joined Dark Carnival. So really, the first 4 years of college I was playing paintball already. So I'm not sure I could have even played on a college team at that point. I was so stretched for time and for money for paying for paintball. But I think it's really cool. A lot of teams have those teams. I mean, I think that's a really great way to kind of grow the sport. I obviously am very far removed from tournament paintball, but it's like the NCPA still a thing.
They've come back with something. COVID kind of killed it off, like a lot of things. And I think someone tried to rebuild it. I'm not quite sure where it's at though. So
well, I know Clemson had a big active team in Tennessee and Georgia Tech, from what I can remember. But we really weren't that many guys at Columbia that I knew that played. Pretty much, at least most of the really talented guys were coming out of like Greenville or Rock Hill or Charlotte or North Carolina or something.
Yeah, that's kind of, if you wanted to be someone in Southeast paintball, you had to go to Greenville, Charlotte, or Greensboro at the time for sure.
Yeah, that was kind of the epicenter, really, of paintball nationally. I think were those Paintball Central fields. I remember I think in 2005, the PBC Rock Hill had just opened, and they were doing obviously playing the weekends, but they also did like nighttime X ball, like in the middle of the week. And I was up there religiously. I felt like that was like the best way to get better, because you're up there grinding against like guys like Trauma and Gridlock, and I don't remember what the other big teams were around the area, but guys are actually pretty good, and just go there and get your face beat in and try and learn and get better. But that was another blast, and that was back when I think Lucian Blackburn, who was the one of the snake players for Trauma, he was kind of like the face of that. He would run the MC and kind of hype everyone up in between points, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a great way to get reps in.
Nice. So you were around for the transition from like normal 5-man to X ball. Oh, that's why I keep looking around to see what's wrong. And I didn't have my stupid light on. How was the transition from normal 5-man to like X ball when it came out?
Well, the other thing that was happening at the same time was, guns were getting so out of control for like rates of fire. Around the same time was when they instituted the 15 BPS cap and the 1, 2, 3 ramping business. So that I think standardized a lot of things from like field to field or from series to series. So going from 5-man to X ball really wasn't that big of a transition, other than you had to be pretty athletic to do spins and play back-to-back points, especially if you didn't have like a full 2 lines for your program. But it did speed the game up, I think. 5-man, in 2004 and before, it seems like you were almost playing not to get shot, whereas in X ball, like you'd be willing to take a risk or to try and take a real big bite off a break, because if I get shot, oh well, whatever, I'll get to play the next point or 2 points away. So it really took out a lot of the consequence from making a mistake, I think. So it really, like I said, it sped it up a lot, and it made it more fun for me as a kid with limitless energy at the time, to just run around the field, and didn't matter if it was 105 degrees or whatever. I just couldn't get enough paintball at that time.
Nice. So how did your involvement with PB Nation kind of like grow? Like, How did that come about?
So when I joined PB Nation, I was just getting into paintball at the local field here in Columbia, and at the time, some of the older guys had gotten it's called a AKA Excalibur, which is a
Okay.
closed bowl electronic paintball gun, kind of similar form to what the Angel was with like the 3 tube design, and that the AKA was short for AKA LMP, which was a kind of a niche manufacturer out of Indianapolis. And they had a very small but rabidly dedicated fan base for those markers. And they later came out with an open bolt called a Viking, which was another fantastic marker. And those guns were so big and heavy, but they got tremendous air efficiency. Yeah.
Visual reference for people
Yeah.
on YouTube.
So I tell you what, I've actually got one if you'll bear with me.
But yeah, that's way better than throwing this thing up.
So
Let's get
this is my closet, and this is my pleasure shelf.
nice.
So go back into my office. Sorry for the Blair Witch Project-esque stuff here. All right.
That's a deep cut. You got to be old to get that one.
Yeah, I don't know how to flip my camera around, so I'm just going to hold it and kind of show you guys. So sorry about the shakiness. So this is probably the first run of Excalibur, and you can kind of see this bolt here. So this is the resting point. And so when it fires, there's actually a separate rammer for the hammer to strike the valve, and then there's another solenoid that drives another ram for the bolt. So it just comes back like that. And these markers had tremendous efficiency for the day. You could get like almost, I'm not sure how many pod equivalent, but like we used to say you get like 1,800 shots for a 6845, which at the time was like unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And they're super quiet and really smooth, and fantastic markers. But so I couldn't afford one of the Excals back in the day. So when the Viking came out, it was like half the price. So I was able to get one of those, and that launched me into AKA, I guess, marker page on PB Nation, and got really into how they worked and how to troubleshoot them and how to work on them. And
nice.
There was one of the admins for PB Nation was one of the guys that actually worked at AKA. His name was Dan Boyles. And I think over time he realized I wasn't like, an asshole or telling people to drink bleach or whatever that people said back on PB Nation back in the day. So he invited me to help out and moderate the AKA forum. And when I hopefully demonstrated I was pretty good at that, my role at PB Nation grew. I started doing buy-sell trade and a couple other forums, including the CFOA. And so just kind of blossomed from there that way.
Okay. What's your craziest thing you ever had to give someone a band for?
Well, I mean,
or like off the wall, I guess, not necessarily just like mean and spiteful.
Well, if you think about it, like it's just people that are talking about a common interest in paintball. But there's people that get like so territorial about stuff, and the slightest thing will just set them off. I can't really think of like anything that was too crazy off the walls for something I had to like infract or ban for. For the most part, I tried to just leave people alone, and really, I feel like our purpose there was to keep it from turning into like a giant porn site or something, or a neo-Nazi forum or whatever. So a lot of stuff was allowed to go back in the day that you probably couldn't go with today. It's basically a bunch of teenagers calling each other retards. I mean that was essentially the PB Nation experience. But there was a lot of really interesting stuff over the years. I think around the time Reddit started, someone had posted a forum or a post in Small Talk, which was a real cesspool. But it was like a crash site series of photos, like a car accident. But there was like hair and blood inside. So someone said, "Oh, well, they hit a deer," and it just grew from there. And it got picked up on Reddit, and these pictures of like basically just some ferns, like fake blood. It turned out it was fake, but someone put like pictures of like meat inside, and so they're trying to say it was like a deer gore. And I just remember that just taking off for some stupid reason. And on a typical night of PB Nation, you'd have like 5,000 or 10,000 active users, but when the deer gore thread hit, they had like 150 or 200,000 unique users on at a time. And I just remember thinking,
Huh.
how stupid is this?
That's the thing that this thing blows up for.
Yeah, that was the thing that brought it in. And then if anyone actually goes outside that thread and like reads the other crap in the small talk forum, where again it's a bunch of kids, you know, trying to flame each other, it's like, well, thanks for the pictures. I'm out of here.
Okay. What cool experience or did any cool experience come from like your PB Nation time?
Oh yeah, for sure. For some reason, thought people, at least to my face, acted like being a PB Nation mod was cool, which in
Yeah.
retrospect it really was not. We were just a bunch of dorks that liked paintball and liked computer programming and stuff. But I feel like it gave me some credibility, especially when I started playing like the regional events. I would wear my PB Nation jersey, which I actually have up on my wall over here.
Nice. Yeah.
I feel like it opened some doors that maybe I didn't necessarily deserve a chance to go through at the time. But I did get a chance to go travel a little bit. The mod squad for PB Nation had an annual event. I think I mentioned it already, where they go up to Chicago to play CPX and Living Legends, and getting to go meet a lot of those dudes for the first time. I'd been doing the nation thing with them for years and only knew them by their usernames. But that was the first time I got to meet like John Dresser and Simon Manicky, the guy that runs Inception Designs. He used to do
Hmm.
all the Empire stuff. I think he designed like one of the Intimidators or some other stuff. He did the Empire Axe,
Yeah.
Resurrection, and all that. Super cool guy. Trying to think of some of the people. I met Bud Orr for the first time at one of those events, which as
Nice.
an autococker enthusiast, that was like meeting one of my idols.
Uh-huh.
But it was really neat. A lot of pro players were there. Kind of cool to see them in person. So yeah, that would probably be like the best example of me abusing my online persona for my own benefit.
So since you're an autococker guy, what's like your top two autocockers?
So I have a one of the new F6 twisters that I built,
Okay.
and that thing. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go on a field trip here.
Well, let's go see it, man.
So I've got a couple of interesting weird ones. So this would be my F6, and I actually
Nice.
yeah, it's got a kind of a color changing anno scheme on it. I forget what it's called, but that's probably my favorite right now. There's actually a small company in Greenville called Nova Paintball that makes a pretty decent autococker. I got
Hmm.
oh, shit, I don't want to drop anything, but I really like theirs. I think before the Twister showed up, this was kind of the first thing out of my bag when I play.
Okay. Nice.
And then probably my favorite weird one is the old flatline cocker.
Well, yeah, I remember when those came out.
And it is loud and it shoots really shitty. But I remember seeing them like back in the Action Pursuit Games magazine, and I always wanted one. And then I finally came across one, and it was a reasonable deal. So that's the long way of answering. I would say probably my favorite one would be that Twister, just because it's got you know interesting parts, and then probably the one I've shot the most would be that Nova, which I do like it a lot. I think a lot of people have had some challenges getting them set up, but like once you get them dialed in, I mean, it's money.
That's like every autococker though.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like you can't really give Nova that much crap about that just because that's part of like the just almost missing the word. Like that's part of the fun of the cockers, like learning
yeah,
how to dial it in, right?
yeah. But I
So,
mean, if you look at, and I feel like there was a resurgence in popularity for mechanical guns, in particular autococker, like maybe the mid 2010s.
hmm.
And a Shock Tech put out a new gun, a die, free flow. I'm sure I'm missing some, but they're all like $1,500 or more. And if you're not playing a lot of mechanical, it's not really worth getting. But the Nova guns are like, I don't know, half that or a third of that or something, and they shoot great. And they're local to me, which I think is fun. So I try to support them where I can. But yeah, it seems like the autococker fell out of favor as soon as like the Planet Eclipse mechanical guns came out, the EMEC and the ETHA, just because
Yeah.
they were basically foolproof, and there's a couple O-rings in there to take care of, and you didn't have to fiddle with LPRs or three ways or cock and rods or anything. But I think a well shooting autococker is the weapon to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I just pulled up the Nova site and they're like You can get a base model for $500,
Yeah,
which is
and
super cheap for an autococker.
yeah, they. I don't know how big of an autococker guy you are. I see you've got one of the wall there behind you. Good for you.
So a 99 right feed was my first like real tournament gun.
Nice. What is that? A free flow fulcrum?
That is the Lotus.
Lotus. Okay.
The Millennium, because that's what I liked back in the day. But
Nice. That's a nice.
this was when they were doing the thing where like you had to buy it during that launch, right? Or
Yeah,
you had to go to the secondary market.
yeah. It's crazy
So,
like how valuable old stuff is now. Like that Excalibur. I mean, I couldn't find another one if I wanted to, and if I did, it would be like a $2,000 gun, which is nuts. I mean, that was more than what it cost 25 years ago.
yeah, brand new out of the box.
But there's a bunch of like I guess dudes like me who have this fondness and memory for that time period of paintball, and now they can gobble up all the stuff from that era. Proflexes are another one that just got crazy. I had a guy that offered me like $200 for like a basic black on black Proflex that was 20 years old, and I was like, dude, you can't wear this. All this plastic's brittle. And he's like, oh, I don't care, I want it.
Yes, this is not safe anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it was safe back then either because it had like these like neoprene foam soft ears, and if you got shot in the side of the head, you're taking the full Monty from that paintball. There was no protection from the side.
Yeah, there's still a group out there that really likes the neoprene soft ears.
If that makes them happy, I think that's great. I buy a bunch of really dumb shit that probably no one thinks is cool, and we all have our own taste for things, and if that's what floats their boat, all power to them, man.
So take us through the collection a little bit. You don't have to show all of them off, but is there something more unique in the collection than the autococker with the flat line?
Let me see. I think that's probably. Oh, no, 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 no. I do have something. I forgot. It's over here on my. I've actually been working on this one.
Okay.
Phone down. This is a double autococker body. I think it's a Doc Nickel body.
Okay.
Doc Nickel is up in Alaska. I think this is one of his. If it's not, I'm sorry for whoever's it actually was. So yeah, that's probably my next one. I actually had a friend of mine try to work on like some parts for it. We didn't get super duper far, and then like there's the front block. So he was going to run the RAM like in between
In between the
like bolt cavity.
the two bolts there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the plan. So I'm actually an engineer by trade, so I've been trying to do a little bit of metrology here, reverse engineering, and then I was going to go in 3D print parts to make sure they fit up before I have them machined and spend the money. So that's
Nice.
that's probably the next big project for me is trying to get that thing running.
So now that you've told me that you're an engineer, the autococker thing makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean we all have like flavors of autism. That's just mine. I like the way the autocockers work.
Yeah, I've never met an engineer that doesn't like a good autococker.
It's fascinating. It's an auto pump gun basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about my only interest. Other than the XCal, that flatline is probably the most interesting one. Everything else is a little more modern. Like I have a Twister ETHA, and that thing shoots great. But it's kind of like a mechanical space gun. I mean, it just doesn't quite have the same soul that the autococker has.
Yeah. Yeah. The new mechanical stuff is nice because you know it's gonna work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they shoot ridiculously fast, which when I feel like when Tim originally did his first like 10-man event and you had all the autocockers and you had the resurrections come out and stuff, like it was about getting back to that old school vibe, a little bit slower of a fire rate. And man, did we turn it into a race real quick, didn't we?
Well, I remember that first event that Montrester did up there in Pittsburgh. There was like maybe an after event open game or something where they had like 50 on 50. And I remember watching a video of that and I was like, oh, this looks so much fun. I wish I could have done this. But like just sitting there watching literally 50 autocockers all open and shoot at once. I mean, that's just like,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a certain, the autocockers just,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm almost 40 now, which is again another bummer to think about. But I remember back in the day, like if you had an autococker, you were the man. You had an aura of invincibility about you when you were like playing in the woods. It's just something about being in the trees and shooting an autococker. That ball went straighter and further than anyone else's paint.
So you do the like scenario thing every now and then now with the old boys?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way to get the group back together. I mean, I was one of the young guys back when I was playing, so a lot of these guys that I knew were in their late 40s, early 50s, and running around a field in the 100-degree heat and the sun beating on you. It's just not really in the cards for any of us. So going and playing scenario games is really a lot more our speed. You can kind of mosey through the woods and pick and choose where you go and shoot, or just hang out and itch and scratch in the parking lot with a beer with the boys. I mean, you really can't beat it. There's so many different ways to have a good time on those weekends. And a lot of times the scenario games are in the fall, so the weather is ideal. It's 50s or 60s, and you're not sweating your ass off and getting mad about this or that. Thinking about back in the tournament days and how a certain type of personality seemed to be really common back then. Hothead guys with short fuses. That kind of vibe really isn't at the scenario game, because everyone's there there to have a good time and chill and just enjoy. So for me, that's peak paintball for me now. Yeah, and I don't run. I'm Moses.
Sorry. Outside of Command Decisions, what's the other good one like locally to go to?
So I would say I really like the field in Rock Hill, Palmetto Hill. I think they're a tremendous value. The guy that owns it, he and his wife Pete, I mean, he really cares about paintball in general. He gets it, and I think he does a tremendous job with his property up there. And he has a lot of really nice compact events like the Red versus Blue game and the Christmas Clash. Those are great. I mean, it's affordable. And the field's great. Lots of people come and play. I always run into people that I know there, which is always probably the most fun for me. Beyond that, I really like playing Black Ops in Fayetteville. I mean, their field is phenomenal. I'm looking forward to trying out their new location in Myrtle Beach. I saw they're advertising like one of those glow ball events, which just looks wild. I want to go try out one of those sometime. So yeah, I mean, locally there's a lot of good options. Unfortunately, in Columbia, we really don't have a good traditional paintball field. Like a Trigger Time is still here in like a different form, but it's not the same location that I grew up playing at. And the other field that I played a lot here in Columbia called Ballbuster, Jimmy retired and closed it down. So to play any sort of paintball, I got to drive at least an hour out of town, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But I haven't been up to PBC Greenville in a long time. I'd like to do that someday. I remember when they moved to that newest location, kind of on the side of the hill, they had just started like carving out some of the flat airball fields. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what's that has become. But I think the coolest field overall that I played at was probably PB Explosion, which is a field up in Chicago. That's where I don't know if you've ever seen videos of it, but that's where they have like a full size scale Call of Duty map. I forget what it's.
Yeah, Nuketown.
Yeah, Nuketown. That was really cool to go play, even though I'd never played Call of Duty, at least not that version, but still need to go play it. Everyone else real fired up about it, so fed off that energy.
I think there used to be a field in Georgia that had it too. So can't remember the name of it though. That's one of the things I want to do like in the coming years is try and go out to some of these other fields,
Yeah, one day I want to go hit up SC Village. I remember seeing like the bus field in like magazines, and I played a lot of Greg Hastings tournament paintball on Xbox back in the day, and that was like one of the premier like showcase fields in that game. I think it'd be a lot of cool to go out there and play. I just hadn't had the opportunity yet. The only time I ever went to LA to play was for a PSP event, and that was not the same experience.
Was that with who was that with? Gridlock?
Yeah, that was with the Division III Gridlock team, which was a fun experience. But they had it on like a soccer field, and not even in downtown Los Angeles. It was like in the Inland Empire, like three hours from LA. So
the LA Open, 3 hours away.
Yeah. San Bernardino, I think, was the name of the town we were in, but it was not close. But that was a lot of fun, because that was my first like national X-Ball event that I got to go play. And when those guys play hard. I mean, they play really, really hard in the field, but when they get off the field, they play really, really hard as well. Yeah. Anyway, that was one of my first experiences with Ken Barrett and kind of seeing the kind of a party animal he was back then. But
Okay.
that was a really fun experience. Even though I wasn't even 21 back then, which kind of sucked because I would have loved to partake in some of the things that was going on around me, but
Uh-huh.
didn't get the opportunity to.
So was Gridlock, how was the Gridlock experience? Because like by the time you get into that camp, like Gridlock is known as the feeder squad to trauma, right?
Yeah.
And they're this huge, huge camp. Like we're talking multiple lines.
Yeah, so there was a Division 3 team, which is what I played on. They had a Division 2, Division 1, and then trauma. And so I came in about maybe a halfway through the year as like a replacement for one of the other guys who couldn't play anymore. And I mean, there is so much talent in that program. It was ridiculous. If you think about all the pro players that came out of there, not even going to trauma, just the guys that came out, afterwards, like Kyle Spica and Steven Lasher, Matt Sossaman, like all those dudes were playing in that program at one time or another. And it was a tremendous challenge just because you had so many talented guys around you. Really iron sharpens iron, which is, I think, why they were so successful is because they had such tough, brutal practices. But I initially loved it and then quickly found out that was probably not the right fit for me. But I had nothing bad to say about my time there. I think those
Mm-hmm.
guys were really cool, even though you know when they start out their seasons, they go through a lot of conditioning practices, and I think going through that shared, for lack of a better term, trauma together really galvanizes those teams together. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, coming in like halfway through the year and not having done that with them, I think for pretty much from the start, I was kind of like an outsider. But no one was like unpleasant to me. There was a lot of guys that were really welcoming and super helpful, but I just never really quite fit in, which is more of a me problem, not a them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it can be a hard thing when you transition into a squad mid-season too.
Yeah.
Like it's just, like you said, they've bonded already,
It
and
has,
now,
yeah, and I knew all those dudes from other teams, especially that Division 3 team. A lot of those guys, I actually played with a couple of them before. Kenley Williamson, I played with him on that squad out of Lakeview, the FU fighter,
okay,
and I knew.
I love that name, man.
Yeah, I wish I still had a sticker. They had a great logo, which was basically a cartoon middle finger, and I don't really remember the backstory. There was a whole reason behind it. It was like some sort of thing, revenge plot to have this team. But anyway, it was just a bunch of boomhowers out in the middle of nowhere that wanted to go play paintball, and we got our asses whipped the one time we played. But yeah, there's a lot of guys I knew on there. Really, really enjoyed playing with them when I could. I guested with them a couple times earlier that season at like the SCFOA events, and we won.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the same time, like I was a sophomore in college. I had basically been gone every weekend since starting college, so
Mm-hmm.
my social life when I came home was not the best, and that was kind of what really started me down a quitting path. I
Mm-hmm.
played, I guess, 2 PSP events with Gridlock and a couple CFOAs, and then I quit right before World Cup just because I was getting burned out, and the life balance at home was not going great. So that's why I left. Not that there was anything wrong with the Gridlock guys or anything. I mean, they were all really great guys.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you still see it today. Like it takes a lot to compete and be competitive. So
Yeah.
I think it is easy to get burned out on it sometimes. So, and then in particular, that was kind of like a golden era of paintball, if you will.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things being flung around sponsorship wise and like future of paintball, right? Kind of people were gearing us up to be like the next motocross or something, the next X sport to hit. And then 2008 hit,
Yeah,
which kind of blew up that dream.
that was pretty rough. I mean, you went from having, at like the 5-man events at CFWA, you went from having like 100 plus teams down to like all of a sudden you have, 20 or 30 per division. So, I mean, still pretty healthy, but not like what it was. And at least for the CFWA X Ball, when I was playing with Dark Carnival, the first year that we played, we had maybe like 6 or 7 teams in our division. The first event and the last event, they were drilling more. But it really started dwindling down to where, if I remember right, like in 2008, we only had like 3 teams in our division. So basically, you're guaranteed a
Mhm.
podium. But like, I mean,
It's also 3 teams.
it's 3 teams. So I don't remember how they do the schedule, but obviously we play like both the teams in the division, and then like we play like 2 more matches against the lower division. Because I think the first year we played like the lower of the 2X ball divisions. I don't remember the nomenclature for how they. It was advanced and intermediate or whatever, and then
Yeah.
the last 2 years we played whatever the highest division was. I think they turned into D3 and D2 for the last 2 years.
Okay.
And so we played D2 in '07 and '08, and like we would go to the event, and yeah, there was only a couple other teams in our division. So it was we played Manus Factory a bunch. We played the Division 2 Gridlock guys a bunch, and we played 2 Extreme was one of the other teams, and
Uh-huh.
that was pretty much it. And then I think towards the end of '07, like the Gridlock guys didn't play the CFOAs anymore. I think they were more focused on the national events at that point. So it was definitely pretty apparent, even to like a dumb kid like me who had no concept of what was going on out in the world and the economy and all that. Things were definitely going south back then. And I think at the same time, like when I started school, I was doing like business or some BS like that, and then I decided I wasn't really happy with it, so I transferred over to engineering. So that workload hit at the same time as some of the passion and the fire for the paintball was starting to die out. So it was an easy decision, I think, after the some of the seasons to kind of cool it off, and then I think
Mhm.
at the end of 2008, that was really the final death nail for me for tournament paintball. Because again, I was tired of being gone all the time, and when I'm in town during the week, I was always exhausted or hurt from running and diving, and I really just lost the drive for it, and I turned into a pretty shitty teammate where I was basically not giving it my full effort anymore. If I were to have one regret from paintball, that was probably it. Is not giving it my all at the very end. And I think it was very apparent to the guys around me. And I think I came off as a pretty big jerk. So I do feel really bad about that. And anytime I see some of those guys, I do try to apologize for that. But again, I was like 21 at the time, making some bad decisions, and that just is what it is.
Yeah. I think most people have been there.
Yeah.
So it just kind of is what it is. That's kind of what you do during that point in your life, right? For most people.
Ironically, so when I was with Dark Carnival, we never did better than I think second place for the series. Even though we won a lot of events, but the points always seemed to work out where it was like very close later in the season. But I think the following year after I quit, the guys finally won like a series title. So I was really happy for them
Okay.
when I saw that. I guess I was holding them back.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but So what's a company that you think someone should bring back to paintball that has died out?
So again, not to beat a dead horse here, but I think those AKA guys that did the Vikings and Excaliburs, those things shot so well, and they were working on another marker that looked suspiciously like an '05 Eco that came out.
Okay.
So they got sued by Smart Part, along with several other companies. I think ICD, who made the Bushmaster and the Freestyle,
Mm-hmm.
and there may have been some other companies I don't remember. But anyway, Smart Parts had some very broad, vaguely worded patent where they basically said, "We've invented electronic paintball guns, and you will either pay us a tribute for every single one you sell, or we're going to put you out of business." And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the companies, smaller companies that didn't have much interest in doing that, basically folded. And I'm a big conspiracy theorist guy. I think what was
Oh
going on
yeah.
over AKA was they were working on the stacked marker, and then when they realized things were going south, I think they may have lent a little bit of design knowledge over to Planet Eclipse, and that helped them
Mm,
develop that '05 Ego. Because if you look up I forget what it's called. It'll come to me after we hang up, I'm sure. But
of course.
yeah, it looked suspiciously like the '05 Ego. So I always kind of like to think about a little bit of a legacy from that company living on. But those guys did so much interesting thing. I would have loved to have seen what had developed and morphed out of that over time, like it did for some of these other companies.
That's a good one, man. That's definitely one I haven't heard yet. Since you are, we're heavily involved with PB Nation. What what is one of the biggest controversies during your time?
There was so one of the main guys at PB Nation, John Dresser, he was pretty heavily in tune with the industry. He was like the main marketing guy for PMI, and then I think he did it again for whatever parent company JT was.
Yeah.
I would have thought like the industry insider knowledge I would have gotten would have come from him, but he was pretty good about throwing up a Chinese wall. What was going on out
Okay.
there, particularly during the time period when Smart Parts is suing everybody. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on, but I'm sure a lot of it just went over my head because, again, I was a kid at the time when I
Fair
went out to
enough.
Wall Nation. For me, like the biggest scandal we had was we had a couple of guys that were like admins, which in the hierarchy of PB Nation dorks, they were like the top level.
Okay.
They were the guys that were most entrusted. They can make like major changes to like the source code for the website. But there was two guys that just lost their gourd. One of them was Harbinger, and he just started like spamming like really graphic gay pornography all over the website.
I remember that.
Yeah, and no one really understood what happened there. And then the other one would have been Dan Boyles, who was the guy that brought me on the staff there. His handle was Auction Junkie, and it was really sad to see. But he became super duper like paranoid about stuff and imagined a bunch of situations where people were trying to do things to him. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he basically started leaking a lot of information that was being discussed in the staff forum publicly, and that was a wrap for him on the nation. So that was probably the other real big one. Are you looking these people up right
I was just looking at Nation in general.
now?
It's like a time capsule, man. This is so interesting.
Well, the saddest thing was Facebook when it came out, particularly like the first, like 5 or 10 years of Facebook, it was the Wild West. There were no real rules or anything. Like I remember buying like firearms off Facebook,
Yeah.
15 or 20 years ago, about around the time of like maybe the 2016 election. They really clamped down on a lot of different things, particularly anything they believe to be a firearm. And they have just for some reason, lumped in paintball with gun. And
Hmm.
even though I'm sure plenty of people made the argument that they are not guns, that's just how they came about dealing with it. And it seems like there's a renewed emphasis from Facebook even today to try to basically wipe off any paintball related buy sell trade off Facebook. And
Yeah.
you have to be really careful about how you word stuff. Like some people will put pictures over the trigger frames to try to
Hmm.
avoid any sort of like AI that's like scanning for unauthorized paintball sales. But it's really weird that Facebook is actively persecuting the people that are using it for pretty benign reason. And whereas PB Nation, which is set up specifically for people to discuss paintball, buy, sell, trade guns, equipment, whatever, we just can't keep people like on the site anymore. It's really sad to
Hmm.
see. And I talked to Dresser about this a couple times, and he basically summed it up as Facebook solved the number one problem that PB Nation had, which was hosting pictures. And if
Okay.
PB Nation, because basically on Facebook, you just drag and drop a picture or, on your app on your
Yeah.
phone, and it gets super easy. You don't have to worry about hosting. On PB Nation, you have to host it somewhere else and then post a link to the picture, a web address, and use their
Hmm.
tools to load it. And it's dumb. It's basically low level program. But if you're not, somewhat computer savvy, it's not the most easy user friendly thing to do.
It can be frustrating, especially back in the day.
Yeah. Image hosting sites would go down all the time. It was, some would exceed like the basic bandwidth that they had, and all the
Hmm.
pictures would, disappear and you couldn't get them back. But, all the information, if you think about it, PB Nation was started in 2000 and it's been active this entire time. And it has been an archive of, massive amounts of information about everything. But it hasn't gone away. And TV Nation was started by a couple guys, led by a guy named Tony Riker, and he ran it as kind of a passion type project, and then eventually it blew up to the
Hmm.
point where he sold it for a pretty decent sized sum of money to don't remember it's some company that had like a portfolio of the bulletin forums, and then that was in
Mm-hmm.
2014, and then it was sold again to Vertical Scope, who currently owns it, and they don't do anything with it. Like they just basically keep it alive. They don't develop
Yeah.
anything. They're not really putting any sort of like effort into trying to fix some of the shortcomings it has to bring users back, and it's a real shame because it's basically in limbo. It's not dying, but it's not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
I wish if there's one thing I wish I could put out there is I would encourage people to go back to PB Nation, show some traffic on the website, and maybe this company would put some effort into developing tools to fix the reasons that drove people to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
The ease of use and the hosting of pictures. I mean, I'm sure that's not an insurmountable thing to conquer. But if you only have a couple of dozen guys online, they're not going to put any effort into that because they're basically getting no ad revenue. But
Yeah. Well, right now there's not even ads on it.
oh really?
Like, yeah.
I got rid of all the ads. I got the ad blocker on there, so not a good patron myself.
Well, maybe that's what's going on. Let's see. We'll remove and see what pops up. Nope, nothing. So
Yeah,
it's interesting.
they don't have very sophisticated by today's standards to defeat like ad blocking software anyway. So, but I mean, there's still decades of information in there. And anytime I get stuck on something I'm working on, I generally go search on PB Nation first. And there's other websites that do the same thing, like M. Carter Brown, which is
Yeah.
probably maybe a little bit more of a classic type marker. Like that was a lot of like the Palmer guns and the Phantoms and like pump paintball and like the early
Yeah.
like 90s and 80s paintball, whereas PMH is probably a little bit more modern for the stuff they focused on.
Yeah. Obscure autocockers on M. Carter Brown. Like if you want something like if you want to try and track down a Westwood or something like that.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, but they have a tremendous amount of information as well. But I think they're dealing with a lot of the same problems PMH does. I don't think they ever got quite as big, but there's such a wealth of information on there. I'm just worried that one day that whoever owns these websites is going to say, this is not worth the effort anymore, and you're going to lose
Mm-hmm.
irreplaceable amounts of information.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like decades of paintball history is legitimately stored on Nation to this day. So, and a lot of the photos have gone away. But I can't tell you how many markers I bought off PB Nation.
Oh, and it's an obscene amount. Like if I was such a gun whore, particularly early on when I started playing paintball. I mean, the number was in the hundreds, and I would have something for like a month or two, and like, hey, I'm gonna try, you know, send this thing off on Nation and get something else, or yeah, I want to try this other thing. But it was really cool because I feel like I got to try a lot of different markers and got to experience a lot of different things, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, what's even more interesting about it is, and this is the other thing I think Facebook, why it kind of took over, is you're using your actual name, right? Or a variation of your government name, where PB Nation was random screen name. I mean, I bought stuff from guys I didn't know who they were, and it turned out to be pro players, and I wasn't even in the pro section,
Yeah, it's super sketchy. Like I remember some of the first things I bought off the internet. I went to the bank and I pulled cash out, and then I went to the post office and I got a money order, and then I mailed it to some dude like in Ohio, and he sent me a gun in the mail like a week later, and nobody scammed each other, which is pretty amazing. Like it would have been nothing for him to take like this money order, cash it, and just
walk away. Yeah, later, dude.
Yeah, and then to combat that, PB Nation introduced the feedback system, which I think helped some. And I feel like as I got older, like I wouldn't deal with anyone that didn't have like a couple hundred transactions on. But that's probably something that they do better than Facebook. So even though you have someone's real name, you really don't know who you're dealing with. And then their solution was to would tag them in the post and say, hey, has anyone dealt with this guy? And hope someone that is willing to vouch for us.
Yeah.
Better than nothing, but definitely not a perfect system either.
No. And the feedback system when it was implemented was nice. Like I remember buying stuff off just to get feedback so I could sell other stuff. If you could change anything about paintball now, what would you change?
Um, I would. So as an old school guy, I think there's too many bunkers on the competitive field.
Hmm.
I think when I was playing, it was either like 35 or 40 bunkers on an X ball field, just 5-man field. But today
Hmm.
it's like 67. It's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, it's a lot.
and I've gone to some open practices. I don't compete anymore, but I've gone to open practices just to shoot a little bit. And people get to their primer bunker, you never see any of them. Like it's almost like playing on like a 10-man field worth of bunkers
Hmm.
crammed onto a 5-man field. So I would say definitely would consider fewer bunkers, and then also I like the rate of fire being a little higher. The 10.5, it's
Hmm.
I think 15 was a bit just because if you're shooting a space with 15 balls a second and it's the right elevation and someone runs through it, they're going to get. I think 13 was a pretty good nom. That was what was the rate of fire when I stopped playing. I thought that was a pretty good compromise.
Hmm. Yeah, it was still. I mean, that's still really fast.
But I mean,
Yeah,
I think
I don't hate it.
I think you could legit if you had like a clean marker board, no debounce settings or whatever. I think you could legit pull a 13 if you're any sort of coordinated, walking the trigger. 15, I think you're
Yeah.
you're you're a bit much, but I think 13 is fairly realistic. I remember seeing that the national tournaments went to like some sort of true semi that was like 13 capped, and it was awful to watch.
Yeah, it was weird.
I wouldn't advocate for that. I think the ramping is fine, but the rate of fire I think needs to be a little higher. These guys that are shooting like 12 pods into a lane without doing anything, that's kind of boring. But I think that's a byproduct of the rate of fire and the number of bunkers that play style. I think more back on my era when we were all carrying like 3 or 4 pods and shooting 15 balls a second and running and gunning, and 2 or 3 guys get shot off the break and the points are done in like 40 seconds. That's a lot more
Hmm.
interesting to watch than someone having like a 9 or 10 minute.
Yeah, yeah, especially for 5-man. Like that's a lot of time for 5-on-5.
Yeah, but I was watching Matt the Gym Rats video, and
Hmm.
he posted the Midwest Open recently. I was watching that video today, where they're like semi match. They had a 9-minute point, and I think they ended up
Hmm.
winning that match like 2-1 or something. But like that really seems like not very much fun to me, because
Yeah, that's boring.
if that well,
I
it's
don't
not
want to
exhausting.
play a 9-minute point.
But talking about like what paintball was supposed to be the next big extreme sport, and
Hmm.
transitioning to what do they need to do to change it to make it more spectator friendly. I think that's what you got to do. You got to have quick turn, and you have bigger moves, and make the game more exciting, and not quite the grind that I think it is now.
Hmm. No, I agree. And if you open up that field a little bit, like I feel like you get bigger moves.
Oh yeah,
Like they mean something a little bit more.
for sure. And
So.
I think they're onto something with the. I watched some of the 3-man pro stuff they did recently.
Hmm.
I mean that was pretty. I still think there's too many bunkers on the field. I mean the guy shouldn't necessarily be making it off the break to the snake every single point.
Yeah.
I mean, if they know he's going to go there, they should be able to gun him down. I think they're onto something there. I remember back in 2005 timeframe they tried that. It was like an indoor arena style, and all the pro teams did it for. It was like an ESPN special or something. But I think that was really interesting.
Oh, the smart parts thing or the rage in the
I
cage
think it was the
one.
Rage in the Cage. The Smart Parts thing was pretty good too, but they made semi-auto, and not all the NXL teams were there. It's like a lot of the die teams didn't go, which at the time I think Ironman and Trauma looked
Hmm.
really good. I don't think Aftershock went. Really, it was just all the Smart Parts teams and like Access. And
Yeah.
I think the Naughty Dogs ended up winning.
Yes, they did. Um, which I could not tell you what the 3-man one who ended up winning that. There was a bunch of like random teams too. Like Dynasty had like 3 different teams in 3 different divisions or something.
But yeah, it was interesting, and they were trying something a little different. But I don't know. Is anyone even trying to do like a television special for paintball anymore?
And I think they're trying to do the 3-man stuff. I think the problem is like it goes on the ochos next to card jiu-jitsu. And it's like, is that the look we really want if we're a real sport?
Well,
You
I mean,
know?
on one hand, you could say, oh, at least we're on TV or we're on ESPN and legitimate. But
Hmm.
I would say, well, you were already on ESPN, 20 years ago, and what did you do with it? Which was
Yeah.
nothing. I think they had like an MPPL event, And that was back when like Oliver Lang was with Dynasty, which was had been a hot mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun to watch. But I remember being at like a fishing trip with my dad and some of his buddies, and I turn off whatever baseball game to watch this, and they're like, what the fuck is this? And I like I don't get.
No.
But that's probably a good entertainment. I'm not sure if paintball is really the type of thing you can televise, but more power to them if they want to keep trying and figure it out. Because I think it'd be neat. I think it's a fun sport. It's good exercise and good way to be competitive.
Yeah. I feel like getting on a Prime or a Netflix, something like that, is going to have a better impact, right, on
Yeah.
getting the viewers you want. I also feel like we're a lot like motocross in the sense that the general public does not care; they want to be entertained.
Well, I mean, you've played competitive paintball and you've been around in paintball personalities. Do you think giving the general public a behind the scene look at the type of people that play paintball really the best?
I mean, you gotta, yeah. Once again, like motocross, I think you gotta pick and choose
Yeah.
those people, right? So paintball's always been a little bit grittier than most, right? A little bit more. It's a team sport, but with a skater attitude.
I think that's a great way of saying it. It definitely attracts a competitive personality, and maybe a little bit of an immature personality at times as well. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I agree with that. The boys want to be boys at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm definitely benefiting from growing up in an era that didn't have like smartphones and cameras everywhere.
But yeah, thank God.
I think about my World Cup and going down as like an 18-year-old with a bunch of my buddies that were a little bit older and sneaking into the bar at Old Town and getting drunk and throwing
Hmm.
up in the fountain down there. I mean, I'm really fortunate that there's no video evidence of any of this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, man, we've cruised past an hour here. Why don't I thank you again for coming on? Like, I really appreciate it. I always love talking old school stuff. Shout out who you want to shout out.
Definitely thank you, Josh Connolly, for talking to me about this. Really, my goal was to come on here and kind of talk about what a piece of shit I think Facebook is and how I think it's the root of all evil. And please encourage people to go check out some of these old forums if you want to learn about paintball from times past. I would say thank you to all the guys I've played with over the years. I have very fond memories with everybody. And thank you very much for having me on, man. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of
Awesome. Well, thank you. And, maybe we'll do it again in a little bit here.
sounds good.
Everyone else, we'll see you next time. You got to hang out just for a little bit. All right.
Thanks for tuning in to the Planet Paintball Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Whether you're out there grinding in the divisional pits or chasing dreams on the pro stage, remember, it's all about the passion, the hustle, and the love for the sport. Until next time, keep grinding, keep growing, and we'll see you back here on the Planet Paintball Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Planet Paintball Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Whether you're out there grinding in the divisional pits or chasing dreams on the pro stage, remember, it's all about the passion, the hustle, and the love for the sport. Until next time, keep grinding, keep growing, and we'll see you back here on the Planet Paintball Podcast.